Okay, folks, we're a bit ready to begin. Councillor Gordon is having some technical difficulties that the clerk is trying to work through with him right now. But if you would all come on screen, we can get things going. Councillor Porter, are you able to come on board? There you are. Well, welcome everyone to a special meeting of council, this virtual meeting today, August the 4th. Okay. I'll call the meeting to order at 6:35. And again, it's worth noting that Councillor Gordon will join us momentarily. I'll take attendance as usual by asking each of you to acknowledge your presence, and I'll do it in the order that you appear on my screen. I'll start with Councillor Townend.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Parks.
Present.
Deputy Mayor.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Buderick.
Present.
And Councillor Porter.
Present.
Also noted, staff that we have on hand, our CAO, MJ Merritt, Debbie Chapman, Jenna Campbell, Steve Dickey, and Joseph Grattan. With that, I will ask if there is any disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Councillor Porter, go ahead.
Yes, I declare an interest on the first, pecuniary interest on the first item, Millcreek Living Subdivision.
Thank you. And I'm assuming you'll fill out the appropriate paperwork. And with that, it doesn't appear to be an adoption of the agenda, but I will ask for a motion to adopt the agenda. And go with Councillor Parks, the seconder, Councillor Porter. And any known errors or omissions? And then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And so we can move on to item 3.1, Millcreek Subdivision. As noted, Councillor Porter has declared a conflict of interest on it. We have a report from Mr. Casemore. And do we have anything from the director or staff to add to this report at this time? No one? Okay, we have the report before us. Council, do you have any questions with regard to this one? Seeing none, and I see that Councillor Gordon has joined us. Thank you to the clerk for arranging that. Welcome, Councillor Gordon. We are reviewing item 3.1 on the agenda, the Millcreek Living Subdivision. And there are no staff comments or council questions at this time. I look for a motion. Councillor Buderick.
Yes, obviously would like to go along with the recommendations put forward by staff.
Thank you. So move to adopt the recommendation. And do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Parks. Mover, any comment?
No, sir.
Thank you. Seconder, any comment?
No.
Thank you. Any other members of council? Seeing none. I see the CAO has stepped in. Mr. Silver, did you have a comment? No? Okay. And
No, Your Worship, I didn't have any comment.
thank you. And then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Moving back, and Councillor Porter, if you can come back in, thank you. Item 3.2 is the results of the tender for Bath Main Street resurfacing. And again, we have a report before us with several recommendations and a report from Mr. Grattan. And Mr. Grattan or the director have comment, or Ms. Campbell have commented this to anything to add to the report?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm happy to provide a summary if council wishes.
And please do so.
Okay, thank you. Through you, your worship. So the Bath Main Street project, as you've read in the report, is approximately $1 million over budget. There are a couple of major factors that contributed to this. The first is the volatility in this type of work in this region right now. The loss of a major player in large volume asphalt projects has led to difficulty pricing these types of projects over the last couple of years. In addition, this project was budgeted using a large volume rural project, and some of the nuances along Bath Main Street were lost during the estimating process. So some of the things like maintaining entrances and access to businesses and the high traffic volume were not exactly included during the estimating process. So we apologize for that, and that came to light after the 2020 budget was finalized. So those items are responsible for the majority of the overages that we see. As a result of the overages, we looked at ways to cover the shortfall. So we propose using $363,000 in federal gas tax money and moving a number of budget items, or requesting that we move a number of budget items from various projects that are either complete or can be deferred to next year to make up the shortfall. So with that, there are two items that we're requesting pre-budget approval for the 2021 capital budget if council wishes to move forward with the recommendations. And those are the County Road 6 garage apron paving and the Zamboni replacement. So those are the two items for pre-budget approval. And I just wanted to note there's some information about the tender process and the scope of work being clearly defined. So the options available are to award or not award. And there's some comment in the report about the risks to the township if any decision other than those two items was to be made by council.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Council, do we have any questions with regards to this? Councilor Porter, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Campbell. Bath Road, that is that not a provincial jurisdiction road?
So Highway 33 is under provincial jurisdiction, except for certain areas that go through hamlets or other types of urban areas. In this case, through the village of Bath, Highway 33 is under the jurisdiction of the municipality, and the funding that is being proposed to be used is connecting links funding that's provided by MTO strictly for these types of connecting links that go through different areas of different municipalities that are under the jurisdiction of the municipality.
Okay, thank you.
Go
And may I
ahead.
continue? What was the amount that was originally budgeted? Is that the 150K that's I see in the report, or was it a different amount?
So the $150,000 in the general rate budget is the township's estimated contribution to the project, anticipating that we wouldn't move forward with the project unless we received funding from the province. And the funding program is supposed to fund 90% of the project. We did go back to the ministry to see if there was any opportunity to access additional funds up to the 90% of the project, and we were told that the amount of money that the ministry had to be given to the various municipalities had been fully allocated, and there wasn't any additional funding to access.
Okay, and lastly, why in the report it indicates that you want the apron and the Zamboni funds guaranteed? Why is that? What's the rationale for that?
So those are two projects that we want to make certain move forward next year. So the apron project, we're hoping to partner with the county when they're paving County Road 6 to share work with the paving contract that's already going to be going by. And the Zamboni was intended to be replaced this year. It's due for replacement. It's overdue for replacement. And there are some issues that our mechanics have noted in the past. So we want to make sure that we have the new Zamboni ordered, and it's quite a long lead time for it. So we want to make sure that it's ordered so that it can be purchased later in 2021 once it can be delivered.
So are both these projects slated to be done next year in 2021, or are you requesting pre-budget approval because you want to get them done in 2020?
So they were originally planned for 2020. As staff, we've identified the opportunity to defer those projects to be done in 2021, but we want to guarantee that the budget money is there in 2021 in order to move forward with them, so that we don't have additional discussions during the budget process for the 2021 capital budget where there may be an issue with funding them because they're critical.
I know I said I had a last question, but it leads to more questions. So if we do a pre-budget approval now, will we again have opportunity during budget deliberations to revisit it?
You may have some, okay, Mr. Silver might answer this one better than I can. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, so this was a team effort. All the departments got together because we didn't want to lose the MTO subsidy on this Connecting Link project. And we were so short, all the departments got together and went through their capital list and very generously are suggesting that you amend the budget to reflect amend the capital budget to reflect these changes to make up the difference so we can get this project going. So why they're asking for pre-budget approval is so that it gets on the list again next year. We'll certainly discuss it again at budget time, but if we're ordering something like a Zamboni, I think it would be very difficult to get out of that order. So you are giving pre-budget approval. You approved it for the 2020 budget. And so this is coming from Laurie McFarland's budget, of course. So we're just asking that it be put back on the 2021 list and that she can actually go ahead and make that order now, because it is about a year and a half or a year and 3 months time lag.
Yeah, I understand that about the Zamboni. And one final question, and I promise this will be a final question. Is there anything on this list that we're transferring funds from that is going to put any kind of cause any kind of issues or problems? The one thing I'm looking at is the Amherst Island Garage plumbing and heaters. There's a couple of items that seem pretty important that we're kind of saying by asking for pre-budget approval on the paving, we're saying that is a higher, in my mind, we're saying that that's a higher priority than all these other items. So is there anything on the list that is in dire need that we're going to have to approve in the next budget?
Through you, your worship. So these are items that the various departments, as Mr. Silver said, went through and identified areas where items were in the budget and had been completed and there had been additional costs, or areas where we were certain that the work didn't need to happen in 2021. So, or in 2020, sorry. So some of these items will certainly be requested again in the 2021 budget process. But we are acknowledging that they are not required to be completed in 2020.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from council? Don't see any. I actually have a couple. With this process that we've gone through, the understanding that we are now limited to likely these two suppliers or contractors to do this type of work, is there any avenue that we would have for future bids of this nature to expand the scope of our RFP looking at maybe a larger geographic area. I'm not sure what to, how can we avoid this type of challenge in the future?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, there are discussions ongoing. Our Public Works Division is having ongoing discussions with the county and other municipal stakeholders in the area about exactly those issues and trying to develop a plan for next time. And also, yeah, it's the supplier that's the limiting factor. So we're hoping that there may be others coming to town. But until then, those discussions about the possibility of looking at sharing contracts with some of our other lower tier municipalities in the county and the county itself are being had.
Thank you. The other question I had was, it's actually a statement and an assumption. I'm assuming that as we go into next year's capital planning process, the estimates that we're using will take a closer look at the geography that those roads are in, and therefore be a little more inclusive of all of the components required.
Thank you for the question. I would say absolutely. We're keenly aware of that moving forward, and I don't know if Mr. Silver had something to add. No.
He changed his mind.
Sorry.
No, I'm here, Your Worship. So yeah, so one of the things we're going to be doing, council may know that we had this long list of capital projects that never get finished or quite often don't get finished for various reasons. So staff are going to be looking at it very closely, that carry forward list in next year's budget as well, and see if we can't get a more accurate timeline for those projects to be done. There's a lot of work there. But we just don't have the staff to complete it, or with the pandemic and there have been all kinds of challenges put before us. So we'll be taking a look at that list as well before you see it again in 2021.
Thank you. Council, I'll go back to you. Any other questions? We have a report and a recommendation before us with a number of sub-recommendations. Do I have a mover? Councillor Porter?
Yes, I do have a motion. I move that the report from the project supervisor be received, and that items 1, 2, 3, and 5, and the pre-budget approval for the Zamboni only be approved.
I'll accept that motion. The clerk understands the motion. Thank you. And do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Buderick? Thank you. Councillor Porter, would you like to speak to it?
Yes, I do have one more question though. In the report, it indicates that, sorry, just give me a second here. I want to find it again. There's a potential replacement of 80 meters of storm sewer required. Is that in the tender amount, or could that possibly be an additional cost?
Through you, Your Worship, that is in the tender cost. It was a provisional item in the tender, but we did further test digs to review the condition of it, and it's not in good condition at all. So we've deemed that it needs to be replaced, but that's included in the tender and the report as written.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So I just feel that it's the motion that I put forward obviously doesn't include the paving of the County Road 6 garage as a pre-budget approval. And the reason I thought that we should do that, we're not doing it till 2021 anyway. So we should really closely examine that at budget time. There's a lot of other things that could come up. There's a lot of money being transferred out. We're raising a shortfall of almost $1 million here. And we certainly don't want to have to be put in a position where some of these other items have to be done, or we have to raise taxes substantially for because of this project. So I think it's just prudent to review it at budget time, see what else is in the budget, and be able to determine what our priorities are for next year, as opposed to making that pre-budget approval for that item.
Thank you. Seconder, did you have a comment?
No, I believe that she was very good going forward and recognizing all the other things that we had to sacrifice to make sure this could get done.
Thank you. Other members of council have comment? Deputy, go ahead.
Yes, I'm not going to support the motion the way it stands, simply because if I remember correctly, the paving that's required around the domes, when it gets to be in bad shape, it could become a health and safety issue, catching loader buckets or plows on it and doing more damage to the asphalt, damage to equipment, but also possibly hurting the operators. The other thing is, the more it breaks up, it becomes an environmental issue then. And the more, it's a simple fix if we catch it before it gets bad enough to repave it. Otherwise, we could end up into environmental issues and it costs more money. The other thing is, because of it being partnered with the county, there's a greater opportunity for savings when it's a small project that needs to be done. If we don't partner with the county, then next year we'll probably be in the same boat trying to get more bidders to bid on small work that aren't interested at the time. Where if we can partner in now with the county while they're doing their design, it'll be built right into their plans, into their specs, and into their pricing. So we could, in the long run, save money through being a part of theirs and not trying to come in after everything is completed. So for those reasons, I'm not going to support the motion as it stands at this time.
Thank you. Other members of council? And our CAO is looking to say something. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, well, actually, I was going to just say what the deputy mayor has said about cost savings. Could I suggest, your worship, that Lori McFarland is available? Could we maybe ask what her reasoning was for making that request?
And I'll do so. Ms. McFarland.
Your worship, that was the reason for making that request, was to try and we're looking at ways that we can really try and have better pricing. And if we can get pre-budget approval to do this while they're, in the front end, it's a chance we may be able to save some more money and not end up in the situation that we are right now.
Thank you. Sorry, just to make sure I understand, the Kender Road 6 project is slated for summer of 2021.
That is correct.
So at this point, either way, we're not going to be doing that repaving until summer of 2021.
That is correct.
Is there anything that would stop us from working with the county, negotiating, and then pending the approval of council at a later date, settling that we would absolutely need pre-budget approval in order to enter into those negotiations?
The only thing is they tend to like to put their tenders out a little bit early, and depending on when our budget is approved, we may have to be looking at pre-budget approval as well to include it, depending on their tender timing. We could always do it as a provisional if at the end of the day, if we didn't want to get in do it at the front end of when the tender is being built. But ideally, it would be nice if we could do it from the get-go.
Okay, thank you. Other members of council? Seeing no one, we'll go back to the mover for final comment.
Yeah, no, I understand the rationale and I appreciate the rationale. But as the mayor has indicated, there's nothing that stops us from including that either as a provisional or working with the county and getting that better pricing and reviewing it at budget time. Now, if it should come to a point where they're getting their tenders out prior to our budget deliberations, then that's something that you could certainly bring back to council for pre-budget approval at that time. That
was final comment. And I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? The oddity of Zoom, I got to call out Councillor Parks. I did not actually see your vote. And were you in favor or opposed? I'm sorry.
Favor.
In favor, and the motion is carried. And thank you. And moving forward to the confirmatory bylaw. And can I have a mover for the confirmatory bylaw? Councillor Townend, seconded by Councillor Porter. And any discussion? And I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And a motion to adjourn. And Councillor Buderick, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Okay. I'll call the question. All those in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you, folks. That is carried. Thank you very much for your participation in tonight's meeting, and we'll see you on the 24th.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.